The largest space battle in galactic history began at the edge of the Sol system. Warlord Kethmore arrived with the full power of the Velthari swarm, over 10,000 bioships that had been pulled from across the galaxy. They came in waves that seemed to stretch endlessly through space. Admiral Kyung-Soo stood on the bridge of the orbital defense platform New Sol, watching as his fleet of 37 human warships prepared for the impossible. Each ship represented the best of human technology and determination, but they were outnumbered almost 300 to 1. All ships, maintain formation, Kyung-Soo broadcast to the fleet. Remember, we are not just fighting for Earth, we are fighting for every surviving species in the galaxy. Among the human fleet was the Indomitable, but Commander So-Young was not on the bridge. Instead, she stood in the ship's briefing room with her core crew, preparing for a mission that no one expected them to survive. While the fleet holds the line here, we will take the Indomitable to the galactic core, So-Young explained to her crew. Our mission is to destroy the primary nest and end this war permanently. Chang-Ho had worked for weeks to prepare the ship for the journey. I have installed additional shielding and radiation protection, he reported. But the gravity storms near the galactic core will test everything to its limits. The neural disruptor has been modified for maximum output, Subin added. Dr. Minwoo calls it a cascading neural disruptor. If it works, it will create a chain reaction that shuts down the primary nest's entire biological network. Dongwoo looked grim as he reviewed the navigation data. The journey will take us through the most dangerous region of space known to science. The gravitational forces alone could tear the ship apart. And if we succeed in destroying the primary nest, we will be trapped in the galactic core, Woojin added quietly. The gravitational maelstrom created by the nest's destruction will make escape impossible. So-Young looked at each member of her crew. These people had become her family over the months of fighting. They had shared victories and losses, hope and despair. Now they were volunteering to die to save the galaxy. No one has to come with me, she said. This is a suicide mission. Anyone who wants to stay and fight here can do so with honor. Chang-Ho was the first to speak. My family died when the Velthari attacked the Jupiter orbital stations. I have nothing left except this mission. My entire homeworld is gone, Subin said. If we can prevent that from happening to others, then this is worth it. I go where my ship goes, Dongwoo added simply. We are all dead anyway if the Velthari win, Woojin concluded. At least this way we die fighting back. So-Young felt a surge of pride and sadness. Her crew had already proven their courage in dozens of battles. Now they were proving their love for the galaxy by sacrificing everything to save it. The Battle of Sol erupted with terrible violence. Velthari bioships swarmed toward the human defense lines like a living tide of destruction. The alien vessels had grown larger and more powerful since the first encounters. Adapted specifically to fight human technology, Captain Woojin's ship, the Soul's Revenge, used its holographic projectors to create a phantom fleet of hundreds of vessels. The confused Velthari fired at false targets while real human ships struck from unexpected directions. Captain Un-Young's lightning strike appeared and vanished like a ghost, hitting enemy command ships and disappearing before they could respond. Her lightning raids disrupted Velthari formations and bought precious time for the defense. Captain Hyun-Woo's Hunter's Moon stalked the largest bioships, using its specialized neural disruptors to eliminate Velthari command organisms. Each successful strike left entire sections of the enemy fleet helpless and confused. But despite their courage and skill, the human fleet was slowly being overwhelmed. Ships fell one by one under the massive Velthari assault. For every alien vessel destroyed, 10 more took its place. Admiral, we cannot hold this position much longer, reported Captain Woojin. Her ship had taken heavy damage and was running low on ammunition. Hold the line as long as possible, Kyung-Soo replied. The Indomitable needs time to reach the galactic core. While the battle raged in the Sol system, the Indomitable was already deep in space, racing toward the center of the galaxy. The journey took them through regions where space itself seemed twisted and dangerous. Gravity storm approaching, Dongwoo reported as his instruments detected massive distortions ahead. The gravitational forces are off the scale. All power to structural integrity fields, So-Young ordered. Take us through it. The ship shook violently as it entered the gravity storm. Space around them twisted and warped, creating visual effects that hurt to look at. The Indomitable's hull groaned under stresses that would have destroyed any normal vessel. Hull integrity holding, Chang-Ho reported. But we are taking damage to secondary systems. They pressed on through a nightmare landscape of torn space and crushing gravity. Radiation levels climbed to lethal intensities. The quantum flux armor worked constantly to adapt to new forms of energy that had never been seen before. Finally, after hours of struggle, they emerged into the galactic core itself. What they saw took their breath away. The primary nest was not just a planet, it was a living system the size of a small star. Organic structures stretched across thousands of kilometers, pulsing with dark energy. Millions of Velthari ships moved around it like antibodies protecting a vital organ. "There," Subin said, pointing to the center of the massive structure. "That is where we need to place the neural disruptor." "How do we get through those defenses?" Wu Jin asked. "We do not," So Young replied. "We go straight through them. Full power to engines and weapons. This is our only chance." The Indomitable plunged toward the primary nest like a comet. Thousands of Velthari ships moved to intercept them, but the human vessel had been designed for exactly this moment. The quantum flux armor adapted to every weapon they fired. The gravity wells scattered their formations. "Neural disruptor ready," Chang Ho announced. "But we need to get within 1 kilometer of the nest's core to guarantee success." Velthari defenders swarmed around them, but nothing could stop the Indomitable's final charge. The ship carved through enemy formations like a blade, its weapons clearing a path toward the heart of the primary nest. 5 kilometers to target, Dongwu reported. 3 kilometers. 1 kilometer and closing. Fire the cascading neural disruptor. So Young ordered. Chang Ho activated the weapon. A massive pulse of energy struck the primary nest's core, and the effect was immediate and devastating. The neural cascade spread through the entire structure, shutting down biological systems that had operated for millions of years. The primary nest began to collapse, its death creating gravitational distortions that pulled in everything around it, including the Indomitable. "Hull breach on Deck 7, Subin reported calmly. "Gravitational forces are exceeding our compensation abilities." "All crew to emergency stations," So Young announced over the ship's communication system. "It has been an honor serving with you all." As the Indomitable was pulled into the collapsing primary nest, So Young thought about Earth and the battle still raging there. In a few moments, every Velthari ship in the galaxy would lose its connection to the central command network. They would become mindless biomatter, no longer capable of coordinated action. The war would be over, the galaxy would be saved, and humanity would be remembered as the species that refused to surrender, even when facing impossible odds. Across the galaxy, Velthari forces simply stopped fighting. Ships that had been attacking human positions suddenly went silent and drifted helplessly in space. The massive alien fleet attacking, Earth became a collection of dead organisms floating among the stars. Admiral Kyung-soo watched in amazement as the enemy that had seemed unstoppable just moments before became completely helpless. "All ships, cease fire," he ordered. "The war is over." In the months that followed, the galaxy slowly began to heal. Surviving civilizations emerged from hiding and began rebuilding their worlds. Humanity, once a small and insignificant species, became the protectors of galactic peace. The sacrifice of the Indomitable and her crew was remembered in every language spoken by every species across the stars. They had proven that even the smallest light could drive away the greatest darkness. The galaxy was free, and it would never forget the humans who gave everything to make that freedom possible. Admiral Kyung-soo stood before the largest gathering of human military leaders in history. Representatives from every surviving colony filled the massive briefing room at Earth Defense Headquarters. The holographic display behind him showed 12 points of light scattered across the galaxy. "Operation Starfall begins in 6 hours, Kyung-soo announced. 12 ships, 12 targets, simultaneous strikes across Velthari territory. The room buzzed with nervous energy. In the 3 months since the Indomitable's first victory, Earth's shipyards had worked around the clock to build more vessels using the new technology. Each ship was a masterpiece of human engineering combined with salvaged alien science. Commander So Young sat with the other ship captains, studying the tactical plans one final time. Operation Starfall was the most ambitious military action in human history. If it succeeded, it would cripple Velthari operations across 3 star systems. If it failed, humanity would lose its entire advanced fleet in a single day. "Captain Wu Jin will lead the attack on the Rigel staging area," Kyung-soo continued, pointing to one of the lights on the display. "Her ship, the Soul's Revenge, specializes in phantom formations using holographic projectors. Wu Jin nodded confidently. She had developed tactics that used false images to confuse Velthari sensors. Her enemies would think they were fighting an entire fleet when they were actually facing a single ship. Captain Yun Young will hit the Vega system, Kyung-soo said. The Lightning Strike is our fastest ship. Her lightning raids can destroy targets and escape before the enemy can respond. Un Young was the youngest captain in the fleet, but her ship could jump in and out of hyperspace faster than any Velthari vessel could follow. She specialized in hit-and-run attacks that left the enemy confused and damaged. Captain Hyunwoo commands the Hunter's Moon, Kyung-soo continued. His mission is to locate and destroy Velthari command organisms. His ship carries the most advanced neural disruptors we have ever built. Hyunwoo had lost his entire family to the Velthari. His ship was designed specifically to hunt down the bioships that controlled enemy fleets. He had spent weeks studying Velthari command structures, learning to identify their weaknesses. Each captain had developed their own innovations, based on the original indomitable design. The human fleet was no longer just copying alien technology, they were improving it and making it their own. Remember, Kyung-soo said as the briefing ended, this is not just about destroying Velthari ships. We are sending a message to the galaxy. We are showing every surviving civilization that the aliens can be defeated. So Young returned to the Indomitable and found her crew making final preparations. Chang-ho had upgraded their neural disruptors again, making them even more effective against Velthari biological systems. Subin had worked with the other ships to coordinate their attacks perfectly. All systems ready, Commander, Dongwoo reported from his station. We have confirmed positions for all target locations. Wu Jin has prepared detailed communication plans, the communications officer added. We will maintain contact with all ships throughout the operation. 6 hours later, 12 human warships jumped to hyperspace simultaneously. They were heading for different star systems, but they were all part of the same plan. For the first time since the war began, humanity was going on the attack. The Indomitable's target was a massive Velthari staging area in the ruins of the Centauri system. Intelligence reports indicated that over 50 bioships were using the dead planets as a base for further expansion. When they dropped out of hyperspace, So Young was amazed by what she saw. The Velthari had built enormous organic structures on the surface of the dead worlds. These structures pulsed with dark energy, growing new ships like some kind of terrible factory. 53 enemy vessels detected, Subin reported. Multiple size classes, including several command ships. Begin the attack, So Young ordered. All weapons, full power. The Indomitable struck like lightning from space. Gravity wells scattered the Velthari formation, while neural disruptors disabled ship after ship. The quantum flux armor adapted to every enemy weapon, making the human ship nearly invincible. At the same time, across the galaxy, 11 other battles were beginning. Captain Wu Jin's holographic projectors created dozens of fake ships around the Rigel system. The confused Velthari fired at images while her real ship destroyed their staging platforms. Captain Yun Young hit the Vega system like a meteor. Her ship appeared, destroyed 3 Velthari vessels and vanished back into hyperspace before the enemy could respond. Minutes later, she attacked from a completely different direction. Captain Hyunwoo found the Velthari command ship in the Wolf system and destroyed it with a concentrated neural disruptor barrage. Without their command organism, the entire enemy fleet became helpless and disorganized. The battles raged for hours. Human ships used tactics that the Velthari had never seen before. They fought with creativity and determination that confused and frustrated the alien forces. One by one, the human captains reported success. Staging areas destroyed, command ships eliminated, entire Velthari fleets scattered or disabled. Operation Starfall is a complete success, Admiral Kyung-soo announced to Earth Defense Command. All 12 ships are returning safely. Velthari forces are retreating from outer territories for the first time in centuries. But the victory came with a warning. Dr. Hae-won had been monitoring Velthari communications throughout the battle. The aliens are regrouping, she reported. They are pulling forces from across the galaxy and concentrating them for a massive attack. On what target? Kyung-soo asked. Earth, Hae-won replied grimly. They consider humanity an existential threat. They are mobilizing everything they have for a final assault on our home system. The celebration in the command center quickly became quiet. They had won a great victory, but it had also painted a target on Earth that could not be removed. "How long do we have?" So Young asked. 2 weeks, Haywan said. "Maybe 3. They are bringing ships from the galactic core, from regions we have never seen. The force heading toward us is larger than anything they have ever assembled." During her continued research, Haywan had made another important discovery. Deep in the Velthari genetic data, she had found references to something called the primary nest. "It is their original breeding world," she explained to the assembled commanders. "Every Velthari ship in the galaxy spawns from organisms created there. If we could destroy the primary nest, it would cripple the entire species." "Where is it located?" Kyung-soo asked. "The galactic core," Haywan replied. "Surrounded by gravity storms, radiation fields, and the largest concentration of Velthari forces in existence." The room was silent as everyone considered the implications. The primary nest was essentially unreachable, protected by natural disasters and millions of enemy ships. "It would be a suicide mission," Subin said quietly. "Yes," Haywan agreed, "but it would also end the war permanently." So Young studied the star charts showing the galactic core. It was the most dangerous region of space known to science. Even if they could somehow reach the primary nest, the journey would probably kill them. But it was also the only way to save not just humanity, but every surviving species in the galaxy. "We need a plan," So Young said finally. "A way to reach the galactic core while the main Velthari force is attacking Earth." The greatest space battle in galactic history was coming, and humanity would have to fight on 2 fronts, defending their home and striking at the heart of enemy territory. The tide had turned, but the final test was still ahead. The Indomitable dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Proxima Centauri system. What had once been humanity's closest neighbor was now a graveyard. The small rocky planet that had housed a research station was gray and lifeless, its atmosphere stripped away. "Velthari ships detected," Dongwu reported from the navigation station. 3 bioships medium size. They appear to be scanning the system. Commander So Young studied the tactical display. The alien ships were spread out in a triangular formation, methodically searching every asteroid and space station. They moved with the patience of creatures that had destroyed thousands of worlds. "They look different from the reports," Subin observed, "smaller than the ships that attacked the colonies." "Scout ships," So Young realized. "They're looking for survivors or resources they missed." Chang Ho worked at his engineering station, monitoring the ship's new systems. "All weapons are ready, Commander. The neural disruptors are charged and targeting systems are active. Remember the plan," So Young said to her crew. "We test everything. Gravity wells first to disrupt their formation, then neural disruptors to disable them. If something goes wrong, we retreat immediately." The Indomitable moved closer to the Velthari ships. The quantum flux armor was already adapting, shifting its properties as the alien sensors swept over them. To the Velthari, the human ship probably looked like space debris. 1,000 kilometers in closing, Dongwu reported. "Activate gravity well generators," So Young ordered. The rings along the ship's sides hummed to life. Invisible forces reached out across space, creating artificial gravity fields around the Velthari formation. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The 3 alien ships, which had been moving in perfect coordination, suddenly began spinning out of control. Their formation broke apart as each ship was pulled in a different direction by the gravity fields. "It is working," Subin said with excitement. "They cannot maintain formation. Target the nearest ship," So Young commanded. "Fire neural disruptors." Chang Ho pressed the firing controls. A focused beam of energy struck the closest Velthari vessel. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the bioship's surface stopped pulsing. The organic portions of the vessel turned gray and lifeless. The Velthari ship drifted helplessly in space, its biological systems completely shut down. "Direct hit," Chang Ho reported. "The ship is disabled." The remaining 2 Velthari vessels tried to fight back. They attempted to phase out of normal space to avoid the human weapons, but the gravity wells held them in place. They were trapped in solid form, unable to use their main defensive ability. "Target the second ship," So Young ordered. Another neural disruptor beam lanced across space. The second Velthari vessel suffered the same fate as the first, its biological systems shutting down completely. The third ship tried a different approach. It fired dark purple energy beams at the Indomitable. the same weapons that had destroyed so many other ships. But something unexpected happened. The quantum flux armor absorbed the energy and adapted to it. The armor's properties changed, becoming immune to that specific type of attack. The Velthari weapons had no effect at all. "Our armor is holding," Chang Ho reported with amazement. "The quantum flux system is adapting faster than expected. Finish it," So Young commanded. The third neural disruptor beam struck the final Velthari ship. Within seconds, all 3 enemy vessels were floating dead in space, their biological systems completely disabled. "All enemy ships neutralized," Subin reported. "No damage to our vessel." The bridge was silent for a moment as the crew realized what they had accomplished. For the first time in months, human weapons had destroyed Velthari ships instead of just being destroyed by them. "We did it," Woojin whispered. "We actually did it." So Young felt a surge of hope, but she forced herself to remain calm. "One battle," she reminded her crew. This was just one small battle. But even as she spoke, she knew this victory meant everything. They had proved that the Velthari could be beaten. The aliens were not invincible after all. Chang Ho studied his readings carefully. "Commander, I am detecting something interesting. The neural disruptors did more than just disable the ships. They seem to have disrupted some kind of communication network." "What kind of network?" "The Velthari were sending constant signals to something outside the system," Chang Ho explained. "When we disabled them, the signals stopped completely. They were reporting to a larger force," Subin realized. "These were not just scouts. They were advanced scouts sending information to the main fleet." This was both good news and bad news. The good news was that the Velthari main force did not know what had happened to their scouts. The bad news was that there was definitely a main force somewhere nearby. "We need to get this information back to Earth," So Young decided. "Admiral Kyung-soo needs to know that our weapons work." As the Indomitable prepared to leave the system, Woojin received an unexpected transmission. "Commander, I am getting a signal from an unknown source. It is not Velthari. Put it through." A new voice came over the speakers, speaking accented but clear English. "Human ship, this is Thaklon of the Karathi Resistance. We saw your battle. We saw you destroy the bioships. How do you know our language?" So Young asked. "We have been listening to your transmissions for weeks," Thaklon replied. "We know you have new weapons. We want to help you use them." "What kind of help?" "Information," Thaklon said. "We know where the Velthari staging areas are located. We know their movement patterns. Together we can hurt them badly." So Young looked at her crew. They had proved that humans could fight the Velthari, but they were still vastly outnumbered. They needed allies, and the Karathi had survived longer than most races. "Send us your information," So Young said. "We will consider it." "Already transmitting," Thaklon replied. The data includes locations of 12 Velthari staging areas and movement schedules for their main fleets. The information that came through was incredibly detailed. The Karathi had been watching Velthari movements for months, building a comprehensive picture of their operations. "This is exactly what we need," Subin said as she studied the data. "With this information, we could plan coordinated strikes against multiple targets." "Commander," Dongwu reported, "I am detecting hyperspace signatures. Something big is coming." So Young made a quick decision. "Jump to hyperspace immediately. Course for Earth, maximum speed." As the Indomitable entered the hyperspace tunnel, So Young thought about what they had accomplished. They had proved that the Velthari could be defeated. They had found new allies willing to share critical information. Most importantly, they had given humanity hope. But she also knew that their small victory would not go unnoticed. Somewhere in the galaxy, Velthari commanders were receiving reports about their lost scouts. They would investigate. They would adapt. The real war was just beginning, and the enemy would not underestimate humanity again. But humans had shown what they could do with the right tools and the right tactics. The galaxy was about to learn that some species fought back, no matter how hopeless the situation seemed. The Indomitable raced through hyperspace, carrying news of victory and hope back to Earth. Dr. Minwoo stood in the massive construction bay, watching as workers put the finishing touches on humanity's most advanced warship. The Indomitable looked different from any vessel ever built. Its hull was made of quantum flux armor that seemed to shimmer and change color as light hit it from different angles. "The armor will adapt to whatever the Velthari throw at us," Minwoo explained to Commander So Young as they walked around the ship. It learns from each attack and becomes stronger. So Young ran her hand along the ship's smooth surface. The metal felt warm under her touch, almost alive. What about the gravity well generators? Mounted along the sides of the ship, Minwoo pointed to devices that looked like large rings. They can create artificial gravity fields that will disrupt Velthari swarm formations. The aliens rely on tight group coordination. If we can scatter them, they become much easier targets. They entered the ship through the main airlock. Inside, the Indomitable was unlike any human vessel. The corridors were wider and the walls were covered with displays that showed constantly changing information. Everything was designed for quick decisions and rapid response. The neural disruptors are our main weapon, Minwoo said as they entered the bridge. They send focused energy pulses that target biological neural pathways. Since Velthari ships are partially alive, this should disable them completely. So Young sat in the captain's chair and looked around the bridge. It felt right, like she belonged here. When do we test it? Tomorrow, Minwoo replied. We have captured Velthari biological samples. We will see if the neural disruptors actually work. The next day, So Young stood in the testing facility with her newly chosen crew. Lieutenant Subin had become her first officer, bringing her cold anger and tactical knowledge. Engineering was handled by Chang Ho, a quiet man who understood alien technology better than anyone on Earth. Navigation was controlled by Dong Wu, whose entire family had died when the Velthari destroyed the orbital stations around Jupiter. He rarely spoke, but his eyes burned with the need for revenge. Communications officer Wu Jin had lost her home colony and joined the crew to help save others. Begin the test, Minwoo announced over the speaker system. A small piece of Velthari bioship was placed in a containment field. Even separated from the main organism, it continued to pulse and move. Chang Ho activated the neural disruptor and aimed it at the sample. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The Velthari tissue stopped moving completely. It turned gray and lifeless within seconds. It works, Subin said quietly. The neural disruptor actually works. One small piece is different from a whole ship, Chang Ho warned. But it is a good start. Over the next week, the crew of the Indomitable trained constantly. They practiced with every system on the ship until they could operate it perfectly. So Young pushed them hard, knowing that their lives would depend on their skills. During one training session, Dongwu discovered something important. Commander, the gravity well generators can do more than just scatter enemy formations, he reported. If we adjust the frequency, we can actually pull Velthari ships out of their phase state. What do you mean? So Young asked. When they become intangible to avoid our weapons, they are shifting into a different dimensional space, Dongwu explained. The gravity wells can force them back into normal space where our weapons can hit them. This was a major breakthrough. If they could prevent the Velthari from phasing, the aliens would lose their biggest advantage. News from the front lines continued to be bad. 3 more human colonies had fallen, and the Velthari were moving closer to Earth every day. But there were also reports of small resistance groups fighting back in the ruins of conquered systems. We have received a message from someone called Taklon, Wu Jin reported during a briefing. He claims to represent a Karathi resistance movement. They are offering to share intelligence about Velthari movements. The Kirathi were supposed to be extinct, Subin said. Apparently not all of them, So Young replied. What do they want in return? Human military assistance, Wu Jin answered. They know about our new ship. Word is spreading through the underground networks. Similar messages came from other groups. The Andorian Underground, led by someone called Mordes, also offered to help. Across the galaxy, the surviving members of destroyed civilizations were beginning to organize. They see us as their last hope, So Young realized. If we fail, they all die. The pressure was enormous, but it also meant that humanity was not completely alone. There were others still fighting, still hoping for victory. During the final week of preparation, Chang Ho made another important discovery. While working on the neural disruptors, he found a way to modify them to target Velthari command structures. Every Velthari fleet has central hive mind controllers, he explained to the crew. If we can identify and disable these command organisms, entire fleets could become helpless. How do we find them? Subin asked. They will be the largest bioships, probably in the center of the formation, Chang Ho said. And they will be heavily protected. Then we go after them first, So Young decided. Cut off the head and the body dies. Admiral Kyung-soo visited the ship on its final day of preparation. He found So-young on the bridge reviewing tactical plans with her crew. "Are you ready, Commander?" he asked. "As ready as we can be, sir," So-young replied. "The ship is perfect. The crew is perfect. The weapons work. Now we just need to find out if we can actually fight." "The entire galaxy is watching," Kyung-soo said quietly. "No pressure," So-young smiled grimly. "Sir, we have been under pressure since the Velthari first appeared. This is just one more day. Where will you make your first strike?" "The Proxima Centauri system," So-young answered. "Intelligence reports show a small Velthari scouting force there. If we can defeat them, it will prove that the Indomitable can fight. If we fail, you will not fail," Kyung-soo said firmly. "I have watched you train. I have seen what this ship can do. You are going to show the galaxy that humanity does not surrender." That night, as the Indomitable prepared for its first mission, So-young stood alone on the bridge. Through the windows, she could see Earth floating peacefully in space. It looked so small and fragile, but she knew it contained the hopes and dreams of 5 billion people. Tomorrow, she would take humanity's most advanced warship into battle against an enemy that had never been defeated. The odds were terrible, but humans had always been good at overcoming terrible odds. The Indomitable was more than just a ship. It was a symbol of human refusal to give up. It represented everything that made humanity special: their creativity, their determination, and their willingness to fight for what they believed in. The galaxy was about to learn what humans could do when they were backed into a corner. Admiral Kyung-soo stood in the command center of Earth Defense Headquarters, staring at the holographic star map that filled the room. Red markers showed the locations of dead worlds. There were too many of them now, and more appeared every day. Captain Dae-hyun finished his report and stepped back. The room was silent except for the hum of computers processing the terrible information. Every person in the command center knew that everything had changed. 17 colonies, Kyung-soo said quietly. 17 human worlds gone in just 2 weeks. "The Velthari are moving faster than we expected," said General Haewon, the Earth Defense Council's chief scientist. She had been studying the few pieces of Velthari technology that had been recovered from battlefields. "They are not just destroying planets. They are consuming them completely." Kyung-soo walked closer to the star map. The red markers formed a clear pattern. The Velthari were following the major hyperspace routes, moving steadily toward the center of human space. "Toward Earth, how long do we have?" he asked. "If they maintain their current speed, they will reach the outer defense systems in 6 weeks, Dae-hyun replied. "But sir, our defenses will not stop them. I saw what they did to the Altarian fleet. Their ships can become intangible. Our weapons pass right through them." Haewon activated a new display. It showed the biological analysis of Velthari remains found on conquered worlds. "I have discovered something important," she said. "The Velthari are not a natural species. They were created." Everyone in the room turned to look at her. "Created by whom?" Kyung-soo asked. "An extinct race called the Morthak," Haewon explained. "My analysis shows that the Velthari are living weapons, designed to cleanse the galaxy of all life. The Morthak built them to be the perfect destroyers." "Why would anyone create such a thing?" asked Colonel Junho, who had just arrived from the Kepler 442b evacuation. "We may never know," Haewon said sadly. "The Morthak died out millions of years ago, but their weapons are still doing what they were designed to do." Junho looked tired and angry. His ship, the Soul's Pride, had barely escaped from Kepler 442b with 3,000 refugees. The planet had been one of humanity's most successful colonies, home to over 2 million people. "The Velthari ships literally ate the atmosphere," Junho reported. "They drained away all the oxygen and water vapor. The planet became a dead rock in less than 6 hours. Among the refugees from Kepler 442b was Lieutenant Subin, a tactical officer whose family had not made it to the evacuation ships. She stood quietly in the corner of the room, her face showing no emotion, but her hands were clenched into fists. "What about the Galactic Council?" asked Kyung-soo. "Are they sending help?" Dae-hyun shook his head. "The Council has officially surrendered. They sent a message to the Velthari offering the locations of all remaining civilizations in exchange for mercy." The room erupted in angry voices. "Cowards!" someone shouted. "They are giving up without a fight." Kyung-soo raised his hand for silence. "Then humanity stands alone," he said. 5 billion people against a force that has destroyed trillions. Sir? Subin spoke for the first time since entering the room. Her voice was calm but cold. What are our options? Kyung-soo looked around the room at the faces of Earth's military leaders. Some looked scared, others angry, but all of them looked determined. We fight, he said simply. We find a way to fight, and we make them pay for every human life they have taken. Dr. Minwoo, the head of Earth's experimental weapons program, stepped forward. I may have something, he said. Project Phantom has been working on adaptive technologies. We have been trying to reverse engineer alien weapons and defenses from dozens of different species. What kind of weapons? Kyung-soo asked. Quantum flux armor that adapts to incoming attacks, Minwoo explained. Gravity well generators that can disrupt fleet formations. And most importantly, something we call neural disruptors. Neural disruptors. The Velthari ships are partially organic, Minwoo said. If we can target their biological components, we might be able to disable them. It is not tested yet, but it is our best hope. Haewon looked excited. That could work. The Velthari nervous system is spread throughout their ships. If we can disrupt their neural pathways, the ships might become helpless. How long to build a prototype? Kyung-soo asked. 2 weeks for the first ship, Minwoo replied. But we will need volunteers to test it. The technology is dangerous and untested. I will do it, said Commander So-young, a young officer who had been quiet during the meeting. She was only 32 years old, but she had shown remarkable tactical skills during training simulations. So-young, you are too valuable to risk on an untested prototype, Kyung-soo said. With respect, sir, we are all going to die anyway if this does not work, So-young replied. At least this way we have a chance to take some of them with us. Kyung-soo studied the young commander's face. He saw determination, intelligence, and something else, hope. In a room full of despair, So-young still believed they could win. Very well, he said. You will command the prototype. Choose your crew carefully. I want the survivors from the fallen colonies, So-young said immediately. People like Lieutenant Subin who have seen what the Velthari can do. They will have the motivation to make this work. Subin looked up, surprised to be mentioned. Sir, I would be honored to serve. What about a name for the ship? Asked Minwoo. So-young thought for a moment. The Indomitable, she said. Because we will not be conquered. As the meeting ended and people began to leave, Kyung-soo remained staring at the star map. The red markers seemed to pulse like wounds in the galaxy, but now there was a small spark of hope. Humanity had always been good at finding solutions to impossible problems. They had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that should have destroyed them. Now they faced the greatest threat in galactic history. But they were not giving up. They were going to fight back with everything they had. And maybe, just maybe, they would find a way to win. The Indomitable would be more than just a ship. It would be a symbol of human determination. It would show the galaxy that some species did not surrender, no matter how hopeless the situation became. The war for the galaxy was about to begin, and humanity was finally ready to fight. Captain Dae-hyun pressed his face against the observation window of the research ship Wanderer. What he saw made his blood turn cold. The beautiful blue world of HFY was dying before his eyes. Massive black ships hung in space around the planet like hungry vultures. They were unlike anything Dae-hyun had ever seen. The ships looked alive, with surfaces that pulsed and moved like breathing skin. Strange tubes extended from their bellies, reaching down to touch the planet's surface. Captain, we should leave now, whispered Bo-ra, the ship's navigator. Her hands shook as she watched the readings on her screen. Those ships are draining the planet's atmosphere. Dae-hyun nodded but could not look away. The Alterians had been good friends to humanity. Their blue-skinned people had shared technology and knowledge freely. Now they were all dying and there was nothing he could do to help them. The alien ships belonged to something called the Velthari Swarm. For 300 years, they had been moving across the galaxy like a plague. Every world they touched became a dead rock floating in space. No one knew where they came from or what they wanted. They just destroyed everything in their path. Captain, called Tai-min from the engine room through the communication system. Those ships are scanning everything around the planet. If we stay here much longer, they will find us. Yu-jin, who handled all communications for the ship, looked up from her station with tears in her eyes. Sir, I just received the last transmission from HFY. They are begging for help, but there is no one left to help them. Dae-hyun watched as the alien ships finished their terrible work. The planet's once blue skies turned gray, then black. The oceans began to boil away into space. Millions of years of life were being destroyed in just a few hours. 3 Alterian defense ships tried to fight back. They fired their most powerful weapons at the Velthari vessels. The energy beams should have cut through any known armor. But something impossible happened. The alien ships seemed to become like ghosts. The weapons passed right through them without causing any damage. Then the Velthari ships became solid again and fired back. Their weapons were different from anything in the galactic database. Dark purple energy struck the Alterian ships and they simply stopped working. No explosions, no fire. They just went dark and began falling toward the dying planet below. How is that possible? Bora asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Nothing can phase in and out of reality like that. Dae-hyun had no answer. In his 20 years of space travel, he had seen many alien technologies. Some were more advanced than human science, but they all followed the same basic rules of physics. These Velthari ships seemed to ignore those rules completely. More alien vessels appeared around the planet. They came out of hyperspace in perfect formation, moving with the coordination of a hive mind. There were hundreds of them now, all working together to strip away everything that made HFY a living world. Sir, we are picking up massive energy readings from the Velthari fleet, Yujin reported. It looks like they are preparing to leave. As if responding to her words, the alien ships began to pull away from the dead planet. But they did not leave empty-handed. Each ship's belly was now swollen with the life they had stolen. Dae-hyun realized with horror that they were taking the planet's atmosphere and water with them, probably to use as fuel or food. The Velthari fleet moved toward the edge of the system, but before they entered hyperspace, something strange happened. The largest ship, which was easily 10 times bigger than any human vessel, turned toward their hiding place behind Alteria's moon. They know we are here, Taemin said over the communication system. His voice was tight with fear. All power to engines, Dae-hyun ordered. Prepare for emergency jump to hyperspace. Where should we go, Captain? Bora asked as her fingers flew over the navigation controls. Dae-hyun thought quickly. The Velthari were moving along the main hyperspace routes toward the center of the galaxy. That meant they were heading for the more populated systems that included human colonies. Set course for Earth, he said. Maximum speed. Earth? Yujin looked surprised. Sir, that will take us through 3 different territories. The journey could take weeks. The human colonies are in danger, Dae-hyun explained as he watched the Velthari fleet disappear into hyperspace. Earth needs to know what is coming. They need to know that conventional weapons cannot stop these creatures. As the Wanderer jumped to hyperspace, Dae-hyun thought about what he had witnessed. The Alterians had been one of the most advanced races in the galaxy. Their technology was centuries ahead of human science. If they could not fight the Velthari, what hope did humanity have? The ship shook as it entered the hyperspace tunnel. Through the windows, the stars became streaks of light. They were racing across the galaxy carrying news that would change everything. Captain, Taemin's voice came through the speakers again. I have been thinking about what we saw. Those Velthari ships, and they were not just attacking randomly. They knew exactly what they were doing. They drained the planet in a specific pattern, like they had done it many times before. You think they have practice, Bora said. It was not a question. I think they have been doing this for a very long time, Taemin replied. And I think they are very good at it. Dae-hyun stared out at the swirling colors of hyperspace. Somewhere ahead of them, the Velthari swarm was moving toward human space. They were bringing death and destruction on a scale that the galaxy had never seen before. But humans were different from the other races. Humans did not give up easily. They found ways to fight when fighting seemed impossible. They survived when survival seemed hopeless. As the Wanderer raced toward Earth, Dae-hyun made a silent promise. The Velthari might have destroyed HFY, but they would not destroy humanity without a fight. He would make sure that Earth was ready for what was coming. The war for the galaxy had begun, and humanity did not even know it yet.